Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another short episode of What's the Scoops. We are very honored today. We are joined by one of Hawaii's congressmen, Ed Case, who represents the first congressional district. And I just thought it'd be cool. He was here talking for first congressional district, right? So it
We are in the
encompasses,
first congressional
yeah,
district right here in Kapolei. Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
encompasses Honolulu, Kapolei,
I go
Hawaii.
Makapu'u Point to Kapolei and up to Mililani, Amos Wahiawa,
Oh wow,
750,000 people,
wow.
including
Okay.
all of Kapolei. Yeah,
Okay, so this is a big district.
yeah.
But anyway, we're very happy that he joined us, and I asked him last minute to do this, just to give us some updates on what's happening in your
Yeah,
district. What are
yeah,
some of the
yeah,
things
yeah,
you're
yeah.
working on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me
Yeah.
out here. I've been in town for just a week. I got to go back to DC and on Sunday, and so when I come home like this, it's time to get out and about. I don't like sitting in my office downtown Honolulu, so I'm coming to your place, right?
Yeah.
And I like it. I like it that way. For me, it's about we're starting a new Congress. Congress goes every 2 years, and I was just reelected to another 2-year term, so
Congratulations.
we're early on in this Congress, but things are going along really, really fast. I'm starting my fifth full term in Congress, so I'm getting up there. And For me, it's about getting everything organized for the Congress because every time you start a Congress, you have to start a lot of things afresh. Obviously, you're still doing the same things, but so getting your committee assignments straight. I'm on appropriations still, which is the
Nice.
money committee.
Yes.
I specifically sought and was assigned again to natural resources, which, aside from taking care of our natural resources, has jurisdiction over Native Hawaiians at the national level. So we work with all of the indigenous peoples there. I'm on the subcommittee of natural resources that deals with all of the indigenous peoples community. So I think I'm really well positioned to continue a lot of the work for Native Hawaiians.
Awesome. Congressman, what are like some of the hot topics, things that you'll be working on or focused on this upcoming session?
Well, I mean, the big picture hot topics, like, that affect us all are, international issues, Russia and Ukraine,
Right.
China. These are major issues in our world. And, whether we're in, Nebraska or, Japan or Kapolei, we're all affected by the outcome of those issues. What is our relationship going to be with China over the coming years? What is the outcome of the very tragic war in Ukraine going to be?
Right.
And how does that impact our world? And it does impact us here in Hawaii. We can be 5,000 miles away from DC right now. And by the way, we're also 5,000 miles away from Beijing.
Right.
So we're pretty close
Right in
over
the
there.
middle there.
But here in Hawaii, we have a very active part of our national defense posture, and I believe that we should try to help our country in that, but on a responsible basis. So that leads me to the number two issue, which is obviously Red Hill, which has been a real breakdown in our military's stewardship of our lands. And needs continued attention and funding. So that's a huge issue for me. Some of the other huge national issues, our federal finances are not looking too good right now, so we're going to argue over debt. Immigration policy is broken in our country. I don't think we're doing that right. I could kind of go down a list of a lot. Our social safety net is stretched. Social Security and Medicare, which are really key programs for us throughout the country, and to include Hawaii, are at the breaking point, and we need to fix them to save them. So these are things on my mind nationally. So I guess what I think about always is the way I think about my job is I've got my national issues, right, that are part of me being one member of Congress, and my responsibilities to our country under our Constitution to make those decisions. I've talked about some of those. And then the second part of my job is how do I help Hawaii in Washington with our federal government? That's like appropriations, funding, that's laws, regulations, any number of things. Like, how do I make sure that our federal government is helping whatever we need in Hawaii, whether it's Red Hill, whether it's protecting our natural resources. Native Hawaiians is obviously a huge part of that kuleana. And then the third area is how do I help my individual constituents?
Sure.
Because each of my 750,000 constituents has some interaction with our federal government, taxes,
Sure.
Social Security, veterans, immigration. And sometimes, our federal government is just not responsive or does the wrong thing. And so I I am the, representative of them to the federal government, make sure they're treated well.
Yeah. So, cost of living in Hawaii, I mean, actually, it's across the United States. Inflation has taken its toll. Like, what are some of the things that Congress is going to address as it relates to inflation or just like the cost to live? I mean, so many of our families have moved away from Hawaii, and so like, how does that weighing in on Congress, and what are some of the things that you're thinking about with
Well,
respect
think
to
about
that?
it a little bit like the buckets I just outlined. Like there's some things that Congress has done and needs to do that will deal with the cost of living, inflation, healthcare costs,
Hmm.
other really drivers of that inflation at a national level. So it's a national issue. I mean, inflation is hitting you whether you live in New Hampshire or Alaska or wherever else. And then there's some very specific issues to Hawaii. On the national level, I think what really happened with inflation was that we put a lot of money out there to help people during COVID, and then when we came out of COVID, people started spending that at the same time that people were not supply chains had been disrupted.
Hmm.
And so it was like a perfect storm that led to inflation.
Right.
And you just got to dig out of it very slowly. So the main thing to do is okay, what are the drivers of inflation? Now let's reverse those drivers, like get the the overall supply of capital out there in balance with needs, free up the supply chains, and then work on inflation through interest rates, which is what we're doing right now. We are seeing the inflation coming down. That's no comfort. I mean, things are still out of control, but we're a lot better than we were 6 months ago. And that's one of the lessons of inflation is once you have it, it's really, really hard to get it under control again. We've gone after very specific areas of inflation, like healthcare, for example, the cost of prescription drugs to our seniors, the cost of getting healthcare in general. We passed some really major legislation at the end of last Congress to finally rein in the cost of healthcare much more and help people out. So those are national issues. And then in terms of Hawaii itself, we all know that we have many, many high cost drivers in Hawaii, but one of the most critical one is just housing, where we have one of the highest housing costs in the country. And so how can I get the federal government to create and plus up the programs that provide for more affordable housing? We're not going to be able to be like a lot of other parts of our country in terms of housing. I mean, if you're in Houston, Texas, you can grow out as far as the borders of Oklahoma and the other states, and you can just spread and spread. We don't have that option here, and so we're going to have always a dynamic that makes it a lot harder for us to provide for affordable housing. But can we, through federal and state programs and laws and regulations like zoning laws that say what you can build and where, can we at least provide for a mix of housing so everybody can find their niche and afford what they can? And so those are federal affordable housing programs.
Right.
But to be honest with you, this is an area where I need to work with my state and county partners because I don't think we've been doing a good enough job at that level to make sure that when we allow, for example, a developer in Kaka'ako to build a high rise, like it's got to be really an affordable part of that high rise as opposed to just kind of, getting around the rules somehow. So we've got a lot of
Yeah, that's true.
mistakes and some opportunities too.
Okay, so maybe a more fun question. I mean, hopefully it's fun. Where are you at on cannabis? Like, is there any hope to legalize marijuana? I'm not favor or I'm not saying my personal,
Yeah.
but where are you at on that issue? I think our
Well,
Hawaiians want to know.
where I enter into this question is that the federal government still classifies cannabis as a Schedule I drug,
Right.
which means it's subject to stricter penalties. And what it also means is that a whole range of federal laws make it very difficult to for states that choose to legalize cannabis to actually do it, especially on the finance side. So my fundamental belief is that each state at this point, they should be able to make up their minds. I mean, if Colorado wants to go full on, and Oregon and California and Hawaii for that matter,
Right.
that's the decision of the state legislature and the people here. It's not something that I feel strongly about. But if and as we do, and we already have medical marijuana, of course, here, we ought to be able to really do it. So if you're growing and dispensing, and you have a business in medical marijuana, you shouldn't have to put all of your revenues in a cash bag and take it around. Like you can't even use the normal banking system. So what I think, and what I've already done in Congress, is to say, take it off that schedule, so that when states make their decisions on this, they can really implement those decisions fully.
Okay.
I don't know. Was that a fun question?
I think we
Fun
gotta
answer?
dissect it a little bit. Yeah, no, I think it was good. So basically, you're saying states should figure that out, not the federal government should.
No, I don't think I think states should figure it out. I think I don't think there's a easy answer to it. So I'm not a like, hey, this is absolutely the right or the wrong thing to do, like a lot of people. I think there's room for states to make that conclusion. But I think we are going in the right direction. I think that a really harsh marijuana drug law in any state is probably not the right idea.
Because technically, the states right now are a lot of them anyway, are violating federal law by legalizing it.
They're not violating. Well, that's an argument that's sometimes used. I don't think that they are technically violating law by legalizing it, but I do think that the fact that cannabis is still on the Schedule I drug list effectively makes it impossible for states to carry it out. So I guess indirectly, federal law is making it hard to do.
Okay, maybe a different fun question then. What do you do in your free time? Do you get to jog around in DC or?
Well, I do a couple of things. I mean, I think, well, first of all, I'm in the stage where I have grandchildren now.
Nice, fun.
And I've got a 4-year-old granddaughter and a 1-year-old granddaughter, and you know what? They really love me.
Oh.
Unconditionally. It's really, really nice,
Yeah.
and I feel really good when I'm with them, and I spend as much time as I can with them, and I'm starting to get some pretty tough questions from the 4-year-old. So but talking about being a grandparent, it's everything that it's made out to be. You get to give them back when you're tired of them, or if they're out of control, or you just want some alone time. And the rules in our house is to the parents is, well, you send them over here, so the rules are our rules. So if you don't like it, you can take them back. So that's one thing. And then I do try to get out as much as I can, to into nature, because that's rejuvenating for me. So try to hike. I sail. I've got a Hobie cat that I sail on Kaneohe Bay, and I race when I can.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
So
Wow, that's something.
I like to travel. Well, I don't get to travel too much, but I when I can, I can. I just got back actually from my first real vacation in years. My wife and I, just on our own, we went to the Azores,
Oh, wow.
which is
It's beautiful. Where did you go? Like Ponta Delgado?
Ponta Delgado, São Miguel, and of course this is really important to the heritage of our state. 25,000 Portuguese immigrants came here.
The fun fact is, we went traveling while we were there. They have taro patches. Did you see that?
I was amazed by that.
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked. I even took pictures and posted them up, and because I looked at the field and I went, hey, wait a minute, that's taro.
Yeah.
What's that doing here? And they said, yeah, it's part of our staple. And it turns out, to get into the weeds on this, so to speak, it's a different variety of taro. It's the African taro, as opposed to the Malaysian taro, which is really our taro, if you track it back far enough. But the African taro came up from Africa when the Portuguese were down there exploring, and they brought it back. And so I was like, all these taro fields, and we ate the taro, and they do it really interesting. They do a stew. I don't know if you had the stew, but they cook the stew in with like chicken. It's lunchtime, so I'm getting hungry just talking about it. But they put the taro in there, and it's kind of similar to an imu, same idea.
Yeah.
They cook it in the volcanic vents, by the way. It's steam cooked.
I didn't know that.
Like volcanic steam is coming up, like Hawaiʻi Island, and they have their pots. They put it down in the vent, and it cooks for about 7 hours. And you take it out and whack it.
I just gotta go back. What I couldn't find over there was a malasada. I couldn't find.
I found the malasada.
Oh, you found the malasada.
Yeah, I found
okay.
because I said to the person that was taking us around, I said, "Oh well, we have malasadas," and he goes, "Oh, you want malasadas?" So we actually went to the local bakery and got them. They're not the same as here.
Oh, they're not.
The taste is the same, but they're kind of flat and more. They're not quite as puffy as here. So
not like Leonard's.
Not in shape, but you can taste it a little bit. But they do something different that Leonard's doesn't do. They put I forget what their secret ingredients are. They put a little bit of rum in it, and there's something else that I cannot remember. It's like like a vanilla extract or something like that.
Interesting.
And so we're like, wait a minute, we don't think we do that in Hawaii. So we looked it up, and the Leonard's doesn't do that.
Oh, interesting.
So we're gonna have to check it out and tell them, hey, you guys are deviating too much from your cultural history.
Yeah, there's a lot of Portuguese. I'm one of them. That's why I went over there. I wanted to see what
my children are 2 of my 4 children are Portuguese, Hawaiian, Korean, Caucasian.
Yeah, it's an interesting history. Kalakaua had an expedition that went over there. And anyway, really quickly before we wrap this up, when we were in the Azores, we went to go rent ATVs. We wanted to go check out the thing. And so at the counter, the guy looks at our IDs, our driver license. He goes, "Oh, you're from Hawaii." He goes, "My grandma's Hawaiian." Yeah, so so he's Hawaiian. Anyway, so
really?
The connection between those.
How did that happen?
I guess they moved over. I mean, the grandmother. So there's Hawaiians that live over there, just like there's Portuguese live over here. So the relationship is actually really, really
But
good.
how would the Hawaiians have? Why would they? I guess maybe the Portuguese came over, met them, and then they went home or something like that. I mean,
Or yeah, maybe they came over here to work.
Yeah.
And then they end up taking home the women. I don't know.
Could be. I didn't find any of the Hawaiians there, I'm sorry to say. I found plenty of Portuguese.
You gotta go rent ATV. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
I can just put in a word to everybody out there. Mahalo for joining us today. And my website, if I can do that, is case.house.gov for any information on what I'm up to in Congress and for anything we can help anybody with.
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman.
Okay.
For being with us, and we'll see you on the next episode of What's the Scoop?